People, it's the idea as leader as coach, so that if someone comes to you like, oh, how do we solve this? My first question is, well, how do you think we could do it? Like, what are your ideas? I could give you my ideas, but I'm curious, like, what are your ideas around how we solve this situation? So it's always like giving the opportunity for the person to, question the obstacle and at least have some curiosity around how they might solve a problem, and then working collaboratively.
Hello and welcome to Uncovered, the podcast with your host, Jason Irving. Join me in a journey to understand what's truly happening in your world and the world around you. This is not about how you're living life on the surface. It's about what's truly driving you from under the covers. I'm going to take you on a journey to deeply uncover the reason why you are here, the ultimate purpose in your problems, and the way that they have shaped your life up until now. See, I believe you have a purpose, and your problems are the highway towards ultimate realization of that journey towards freedom and the reconnection of your true self. I've been told I have a different spin on most things, and I'll be giving you my understanding of life, love, and what we're all here for, purpose. To get the best out of this podcast, drop what you already know so you can discover what's beyond you. So join me, let's play this game of life and bring on liberation, transformation, and change. Let's do this. Hey guys, welcome to Uncovered. I am really excited to have an amazing guy here, and I put my feeler out. I added you as a friend on Facebook, and then I asked, can I get you on a podcast? So I thought you were going to say no, Lawrence, and I got a yes. So I'm really excited. I have I run a company called the Wellness Breakthrough Academy, and I wanted to have a certification, and someone told me about this amazing service called IICT. And I jumped on IICT, filled out the forms, and I now have internationally recognized mentoring program thanks to you, Lawrence. So I really appreciate the fact that I get to talk to someone who is actually supporting my business and what I do. So welcome to Uncovered, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jason. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So I'd love to know if you could let the audience know sort of where you've come from and how you started, and what were your initial things that you were up to when you started your journey, helping people, and what was your passion, what was going on for you in your world?
Yeah, well, they say necessity is the mother of all inventions. So I was running a natural therapies school myself, and had my own students, and they were graduating, and the people doing all different kinds of natural therapies, complementary therapies. And this was like 20 years ago. And a lot of people were like, oh, well, I've got this qualification, so I got to join that association, and they have all these requirements. But I also have this other qualification in this other natural therapy, so I have to join this association. And the main complaint was that, well, there's all these different associations for these individual therapies, and no one covers all of them. And a lot of people were like, well, wouldn't it be great if there was just one organization that covered everything? And I was like, yeah, that would be good. And I thought, well, there's a bit of a gap. So being the entrepreneur that I am, I thought, well, okay, I'll create a body that covers the whole industry. So this was back in 2002, and it was literally me in my little studio at the back of my house in Fremantle at the time, one person show, so solopreneur. And was working with different insurance agencies to be able to provide insurance for the members, and literally just set it up and started working away. And it was interesting. So quite a lot of friends and people I knew were in that position, needing some sort of solution that was a way of not having to join a lot of different associations for all the different qualifications. So it started out very small. We started with 50 natural therapy occupations, and now today we have about 1,500 occupations, and it's all over the world, 27 countries, and it's just growing from strength to strength. So I guess over that time, I definitely learned all the wrong things to do. So I've made, I think, every possible mistake you can make in growing a business and scaling a business. So yeah, I guess I'm in a good position now to be able to advise other people, what to do, what not to do, and I guess the end result is where I am now with it is. During the whole COVID thing, it was definitely a very challenging time. But despite all that, we've actually grown about 30% during that time, where actually a lot of therapists weren't able to work, which was really interesting. And I've installed someone to take over my job as CEO. So I'm now in the chairman role, which means I really don't have too much to do these days. I'm not very much in the day-to-day of the business. I still go in to the office and check in with the team and so forth. And but yeah, mostly I'm looking at the financial reporting once a month. I'm reviewing the marketing. And going over, the key projects. So really moved from a more of the hands-on day-to-day to more of a strategic position within the company.
And how's that feel like moving? How's that feel having that transition and change? Because it's sometimes people really struggle. And I'd love to ask you another question around this as well. It's like, what is it about you that when you said to me this, and a lot of people give up, what is it about you and the people who are successful? You said this, and I've heard this many times, that 90% of the things go wrong with ideas and 10% of the things work. How do you handle mentally, emotionally, spiritually? What do you do to get past those things?
Yeah, well, I think it's grit. It's just perseverance, and you can launch an idea and your strategy, and it completely fails, and it's just you lose money, you lose sleep, you're stressed out. But I think it's coming back to your own personal vision and knowing what your true north is, and just keep coming back to that. So I think a lot of businesses fail for a lot of reasons, but I think a lot of businesses fail because people simply give up. They lose, they get disillusioned, or they don't really go the distance. So I think the reason I'm still here and we're still operating and so forth is, just brute perseverance and brute force, just to go, no, I'm not giving up. I'm just going to keep going no matter what. And it's I think some people have the mental muscle to do that, and others don't. You definitely need to have a lot of resilience and a lot of belief in yourself, even when the odds are against you.
Yeah, I love hearing that, because I spent a lot of time with really big players, billionaires, millionaires, and they've all come and they've spoken more about the problems that they've faced in their stories than the actual solutions at hand. And it's really, I guess that's because there's been so many errors, and then we see the attitude. And I think the attitude's so brilliant that you have this ability to adapt. And I think, moving to that next question is, you've pulled yourself back to the chairman role. What does that feel like, taking your hands off? How do you handle that?
Yeah, well, the guy who's running the company now as CEO, he's like, we definitely had a few little things to overcome, because I was going into micromanaging my manager, and so it's like letting go of the reins and trusting in the process, and that surrounding yourself with people who have more talents in the areas where you don't, and letting them do what they do best. So it's been a process of getting out of the way, in a way, because I've got my particular flavor or way of doing business or working, and the guy who is our CEO now, he has his flavor, so it's about getting out of the way, letting him do what he does best. And look, part of that too is really having access to some good coaches for business, and mentors, and also continuously learning and educating yourself and improving your skill set. So I think a lot of those things have been really pivotal to my success in terms of having good business coach, strategic coaches, mentors. Had the privilege of working with some really great mentors over the years, like Simon Reynolds, who was he was kind of like the top creative director in advertising in the late 80s, early 90s. So don't know if you remember the Grim Reaper bowling alley ad. Yeah,
I
so
remember that. Yeah, I was scared of that.
That was with the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah.
Pandemics and epidemics, all the different things. So working with him was just amazing, and so worked with him for quite a number of years, and so I think there's always going to be someone in the room who's smarter than you, and so if you're this old adage, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So surrounding yourself with people who are bigger players and have greater knowledge, then and a commitment to lifelong learning. That sense of having that open mindset, not going like, well, I know it, keeping your ego in check and going, well, okay, I think this is how it is, but it may not be, so having that sense of curiosity really alive in every situation, and assuming you may not know is really helpful, because as soon as I know for myself, when I've in a situation, I'm like, oh, this is how it is. And if I haven't got curiosity alive, then I'm usually going to get a kick in the pants, because my ego will get in the way, and then I'm going to miss opportunities. I'm not going to see the full picture. So having curiosity just in any communication, we know this in relationships and all that as well. If we're not curious, then we'll usually end up in trouble at some point.
That's correct. Look, I love what I'm hearing right now, Lawrence, because quite often I've spent time with people who are very, very successful, and I don't hear the tonality that comes out of your voice and the wisdom. You're like Yoda. You've got a real calmness and assuredness, but you're not beating your chest and saying, I'm the man. And this is the type of people, listeners, that you need to actually follow, because there's not many of them around. I've not seen a lot of them around. I look for people like Lawrence as a person that I would like to get help from, simply because you can see he's got an astute wisdom. He knows he's not the smartest person in the room. So what he'll do is he'll look for the smarts in people. This is what I'm seeing you do when I look into your eyes, because I'm really good at picking people apart, Lawrence. That's my magic. I can find the disaster in people's problems just by having a look in their eyes and seeing where they go. And to hear what you've got to say as a very, being in the game since the 80s, I was 9, wasn't thinking about anything other than trying to get away from, kicking a football around, and having such a wealth of experience and talking the way that you do. Like, you really, really inspire me, because what I'm seeing right now is what I want to be when I get to a certain stage in my business. And you're actually teaching me right now an attitude. And it's a beautiful attitude to actually have. And I think, listeners, when you get someone like this, I'm really lucky. I feel really lucky right now to just be in your presence right now, just to hear the magic that comes out of your voice, the generosity, and the way that you speak is like the wise people in the movies.
Thank you. Yeah, well, look, you touched on a couple of points there too, like, to really be embodied, and, whether you're a woman or a man or whatever it is. So like, for me, being embodied in my masculine, it's really important to be embodied in my presence. So being really here, and look, like, in terms of personal core values, that's my first one is presence. So being present, and just experiencing now, not going over what happened before, not taking myself out of the now and being somewhere in the future, which is yet to be created. And, and also like coming from a place of generosity and contribution. So, contribution is like another one of my core values. So around how can I give back? And it's hard to give back if you are not in a space of surplus. Yeah. So if you're in survival, if you're stressed, if you are, and it doesn't mean to say that those things don't come up in life, but if you're in that space of survival, it's very hard to give from a useful place. So a lot of my background and trainings in Tibetan Buddhism, meditation, mindfulness as well, and also nearly 30 years of martial arts training as well. So all those things help, I think, to all those great mentors and teachers I worked with as well have helped build this 2.0 whatever it is version of me, which is constantly evolving. So there's no sense of, I've arrived or I've made it. It's like I'll never make it. I will never arrive. There is no arrival hall. I'm on I'm on the flight until I fall off the perch, whenever that is, and who knows when that is, right? So so it's just one of those ideas of like waking up each day going, okay, well, how can I be most useful? What have I got to give here? What can I learn? And how can I be in the moment as much as I can possibly be? Because as soon as I'm not there, I'm actually missing out, on what's on the richness, the fullness of the experience, whatever it is. And the mundane can be super interesting if we afford ourselves the awareness of it. It can just be mindful. Whatever it is, like making a coffee very mindfully and drinking it very mindfully and appreciating it and whatnot, So whatever it is, it's just bringing presence to that is a huge gift, I think.
So I've got a question for you around this. So when we look at, past, present, future, and you're an entrepreneur, so in the way that you think, you have ideas that pop, right? And they pop that haven't been created yet, and you haven't built them yet. So there's a future orientation, and there's past wealth experiences that you've already built that you can use from your past experiences that you can drive off. How do you do that? How do you have, you've got your future projection based vision, and then you've got to be in the present to make sure you do it well, to drive yourself towards the arrowhead of your next destination. What does that look like in your words?
So, certainly as ideas come, then to record them or document them. And then, it's like having some focused time to work on the creation of those things. And then bringing together people, resources, or whoever, can assist in the manifestation of that. So look, I'm just by design, I'm not a super detailed person. I'm big picture.
Me too.
If we're looking at sort of NLP models and whatnot, sort of a kinesthetic big picture type frame. I feel I'm someone who's good at bringing people together and bringing ideas to life, through good execution. And I may not do a lot of the execution actually these days. Like I used to do bloody everything, and it was like, and I used to do everything and not all of it very well. So so again, it comes back to that principle of finding yourself in a place of being open to receive the gifts of others and then utilize those skills and again, being able to get out of the way and let them do what they do best. But certainly being there as the visionary to inspire, to help other people do their work and collaborate is really important, because usually many heads are better than one, and at the same time usually one of those heads in the many is better than all. So it's not one or the other, it's actually both. So I think it's important to have that idea that when people are working collaboratively, they look at the collective ideas. And I guess if there's a unanimous, like, yes, everyone really likes this particular thing, then we go with that, and no one has to get too precious about their particular idea, because again, that's the ego going, well, I want to be special, or oh, my idea was special, or whatever. And it's like, well, you can't be too precious about those things, because ideas come and go. And look, I have loads of ideas, and some of them are really good, and most of them are really not, and shouldn't be done, because what's the spill-on effect? Like, what's the result of that? So really just look, having enough discriminating wisdom to know, okay, where's the jewels within all of that, and what's worth working on, and the rest just leaving it, because it's like, well, it might be good, but it may not be good timing, or it may not be appropriate now.
So would I be right in saying, like, you've got this, like, the visionary is the person who can see beyond the picture that most people can't, right?
Yeah.
They've got a gift that is, if we don't have visionaries, the world doesn't get created the way, we wouldn't have bridges, right, basically. But we need someone to build those bridges. Visionaries don't usually do the building. They go, here's what it looks like, and then we get the people who do the conductors of that vision to come forward. So when you've got your team, are you looking at inspiring that great idea, and you see out of all, let's say there's 5 heads in a team, and you're one of those 5, and you look around, 4 people have put their ideas up. As a visionary, are you popping those ideas and going, oh my God, this is what it could be, and this is how it could be, and then you start delivering that back to your team? Or how does it work when you're collaborating with your team?
Yeah, well, look, sometimes I'll come up with an idea, and then we sit down with whoever's within the team that are going to work on it. But so it's not like, my way or the highway or something. It's really like, here's an idea, and then we wrestle it out, and we see, okay, yeah, well, does that make sense? Or really open to their ideas, which could be like, this is a bad idea, or it could be, what if we added this, or what if we took this away? So it's always like chipping at it, and seeing what lands through the process of going into it. So it's not a question of it's this and it's perfect and go and do that. I mean, sometimes it is, but mostly it's not. It's around like, oh yeah, but what if we do that? What if then that's going to happen? Then how do we deal with that? And I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. So it's having having the right people around you who have enough courage also to push back, or have enough courage to say to the chairman, actually, I think you're wrong, and here's why. Because again, and that comes down to having like an inclusive culture where people feel safe enough, there's enough psychological safety that they can share their ideas. What tends to happen when there's a dysfunctional culture within a team is that, the boss might say, hey, we're going to do this, and everyone's going, well, we better, or they're the pleaser, like, oh yeah, we'll do it. We'll do what he says, because, he's responsible for our payroll. So we'll just agree. But then secretly, when he's not there, we'll go, oh, that was crap. I can't believe we have to do this, and I never want to be in a culture like that. I want to always be in a place where someone can say, hey, I don't think that's right. Or, thanks for your idea. What if we did it this way? So if people don't have the courage, and they have courage because they feel safe enough to have the courage in the first place by creating a culture where it's allowed, then, there's opportunity for growth. If that's not there, then you end up making mistakes, and you end up in a situation where you're like, oh, hang on, well, maybe that wasn't a good idea. But if you haven't got the culture there where people can speak up, then you often will find yourself in a situation where you've got more problems than it was worth. So I'd always encourage the team to be collaborating from that place. And luckily, and having done a lot of hoops that people go through to get the right people in the organization, then we really do have people who are just excellent at, they're working in their genius zone most of the time. And if they particularly don't do very well at a task, then we take them off that task and we give it to someone who really loves doing that. Like for me doing my accounting and my bookkeeping would be an absolute disaster.
Yeah, me too.
I'd be like, oh, here's the receipts, they're in a box, sort it out. Like that's kind of me, right? Like I do know how to look at a balance sheet and all that, which I've had to do as a bit of a discipline. But in terms of getting into the minutiae of numbers, it's just like, oh God, make it stop.
Lawrence, you and I sound so similar. I'm exactly the same. I've had to push myself to do my own taxes, and I don't do that anymore. I get other people to do all the bits and pieces like that for me now. And look, listeners, I think this is really important. What Lawrence is saying here is that as a leader, he's asking and he's asking for courage. He's asking for pushback. He's not asking for yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. And this is what a true leader is all about, the embodiment of actually asking people to empower themselves to contribute. And being a person who seems to me, from what I see from you, because I'm pretty good at picking people, you'd be pretty dialed in at knowing when you get a yes person and you'd be encouraging them to get their point of view across. Would you do that naturally?
Oh, you mean so if someone's just agreeing with me, or being agreeable, I look at, I think I'd notice that pretty quickly, and I'd be a little like, well, what do you really think, but also people, it's the idea as leader as coach, so that if someone comes to you like, oh, how do we solve this, my first question is, well, how do you think we could do it? Like, what are your ideas? I could give you my ideas, but I'm curious, like, what are your ideas around how we solve this situation? So it's always like giving the opportunity for the person to, question the obstacle and at least have some curiosity around how they might solve a problem. And then working collaboratively, because again, it's different to just say, oh, well, you work it out. So that's like completely hands off, and then the person's like, oh, but I might need resources, I might need support, or whatever it is. So it's like, again, keeping curiosity alive, saying, well, okay, well, all right, what's the issue? Okay, what it is? Okay, well, and what do you need? What do you think we need? So we're starting to then pull together resources to problem solve, and then they might need support, right? They might need someone else who's got expertise in a certain area to come in and assist them, and then those guys can collaborate and then report back. But again, the fundamental idea then is to empower people to resource and creatively solve problems as they arise. Versus, the old model of like running to mum and dad, oh, hang on, this happened and you sorted it out for me. So I don't want to have a team that are like a bunch of children. I want a bunch of really excited, engaged adults who are interested in problem solving and collaborating, and that's where the real work gets done, and that's where the breakthroughs occur as well.
Yeah, and you can hear that. Like, I just heard your tone get into that real want and desire, like to say, this is what really makes me tick, is community and connection and everyone getting a valued pathway in the desired changes of your business. And I've got another question for you. I happened, because we're friends on Facebook, you see the little scroll of things. I happened to look at something, and in the background of your of you right now, you've got these amazing things in the background. I saw you. Did you just have a sweat, or are you about to do one this weekend, a sweat lodge?
Oh yeah, so look, I've got my thumbs in lots of pies. So look, part of my training I did 25 years ago was a traditional apprenticeship under a shaman. So I studied shamanism and Native American traditions and so forth. So yeah, that's just like again, more of a contribution, give back type thing that I do. So I run a sweat lodge that's once a month in the Byron Bay area. And and it's something I don't receive money for. Like there's a fee that people pay, but any money we generate, we donate to charity and so forth. So we're very much we're also integrating that into IICT at the moment as well. So every time someone buys a membership subscription or renews, then we're contributing a portion of the proceeds towards one tree planted. So every dollar is a tree planted. So we're looking at integrating that as well. So yeah, so I'm a big believer in contribution, and it doesn't take a lot usually to make some sort of difference and work towards something that is more meaningful. So it would always put passion, contribution ahead of profit. You got to be profitable, otherwise you're not in business. But what's the legacy, what's the meaningful impact, not just for the next short term, but like for the long term. So it's seeing the world through the lens of a statesman versus a politician. Politician's concerned about the next few years or the next term or whatever it is, and beyond that they're really not so concerned. So the statements like a statesman is looking 100 years ahead. What's the legacy I leave for generations to come.
I love that. And that's the Native American tradition, isn't it? The 7 generations behind, the 7 generations in front. And that sort of ethic is so important to the Native American tradition, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's the idea of caretaker philosophy. So, if we go to a place or we do something there, we leave it better than the way we found it. They had very much the idea that if they were taking something from nature, they wouldn't take the strongest and the best, they'd take the weakest and there was that sort of natural selection occurring, but like really consciously. And anything that it was taken in nature was there was like a prayer for it of acknowledgement of gratitude. And so looking at it from not being separate from nature, but being integral part of it and working together, to create harmony. And so I've always been attracted to stuff like that. And again, like been doing Aikido for about 25 years now or more. And, that's very much about creating a harmony out of conflict, finding harmonious resolution. So a lot of the arts and spiritual traditions I've studied and practiced still is usually around creating peace and harmony. Those qualities. I mean, I don't mind being assertive and having positive conflict and tussling through to overcome and all that as well. So I'm not just sitting on my meditation cushion and contemplating my navel lint. I'm out there in the world doing stuff. But it's like, again, like how can I be of most service, the most use for the greatest good, for the greatest length of time to impact the most people.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I loved your post too, because I was like, the moment, like as we do with all people, we can be quite hesitant, especially in this day and age, about what people show on Facebook and what people show behind the scenes. And I talk about this to the Academy members, that whatever you do when no one's looking is what you do that will make you proud, not what everybody is seeing in front of you. I think this is a really important ethic. And what I got to see in front of me was the rules of the sweat, which is, listeners, that no alcohol, a couple of days before, make sure you abstain. So we're looking at a person who has created a alternative health to get the insurance and lives and swears by the idea of it, and making sure that people are really healthy and focused before they go into a sweat lodge, because they are very intense. I've done quite a few, and they are very intense on you emotionally at times. So I remember felt like I had a spear going through my whole body when I had a Native American say, "This is for you, Jason." So he because I was doing all this healing work during this week, and he wanted to give back to me for all the care that I was supplying the whole tribe of people who were on the property that we were on. And your attitude, I love the fact that you're very clear about how important the prep that you have to do to go into these things. And I think, like, I don't drink. I stopped drinking in 2004. I don't smoke weed. I don't have coffee. I don't have a lot of things that are unhealthy for my body, because I had to stop because I could feel my body actually going into deterioration. And so when you have that approach, it really shows as a leader the value of health and well-being in this world. And I'd love to know, Lawrence, I'm inspired by you as a person, and I didn't really know you until today. I just sort of get a good read. I had a look at your eyes, and I was like, I really like your profile. I added you as a friend. I really want to talk to you. And now I'm so grateful that the listeners are going to get the opportunity to have your voice on Uncovered. Tell me about the legacy. Tell me about what you would like to see this planet become, and what are you wanting to leave behind? So my ask is, what's on your tombstone? What are you going to be remembered by? What is it that people are going to say, Lawrence was this? Because I see you as an icon. I see where you're going. And you're going to be a person that people will actually know. We will know your name when you pass. So what is on your tombstone, Barb? What is your legacy?
Yeah, well, look, I've got 3 children, so I want to show up and be the best father I can be for them, and model what it is, particularly for my boys, what it is to be a man in the world, and how they can be congruent, and so yeah, like family is super important, and modeling the way, for them. I'm also very interested in supporting men's work and rites of passage type work for transition, for boyhood to manhood, those sorts of things. And so I would say that I'm have a vision for myself in terms of when the further I go along, the more interested I have in contribution and giving back. And I would hope that I was able to inspire a lot of people and give them that inspiration and courage to follow their passions and their dreams, and build that inner resilience, to be really clear and grounded people, So I don't know the reach. I don't have a specific number of reach, because, you can say, well, I've got this huge reach, right? But how many of those people did you personally affect in the sense of lasting change? Because you can have reach, and it's like, oh yeah, I saw that, didn't do anything with it. Or it's like, oh wow, I deeply engaged with that, and that was really transformative, and I can really attribute it to that mark at that point in time. So I would just say that will continue to explore and continue working, in a way that helps other people be inspired and enriched in their own lives. And if I can do that by being a good example, it's great, And so I'm really about what's the real impact, lasting impact on people versus it's kind of like reading content online. You're consuming content, and it's like, oh yeah, that was good, and then you're on to the next bright shiny object, versus actually going, oh wow, how do I deeply integrate that and become that aspiration and become embodied in that, so that people go like, oh, something has changed. You look different. You seem different. Your behaviors are showing up in a certain way where you are not who you were before. Yeah, so I think that's exciting to me when people can be experience and show up in a new way. And the measure for that is actually behavior, but the measure is also about how people view you in that new way. And that's where it's noticed. Are people around you going like, oh wow, this feels really nice, this feels good, this feels connected, or seems a bit ego trippy, or I feel a bit disturbed, so sort of that there's a saying like when a new couple is together, do people around you feel warm and connected, or do they feel disturbed by that connection? So it'll always have some sort of impact in the environment, on people, in the situations, in communities. So I think that's where it's a good measure. You start to see how people experience you.
And I think this is really awesome, because what you're coming here with to the table is, I talk about this a lot around the intangibilities, right? But people notice the intangibilities, and that's what really, really matters. We can measure how people act and what they do. There's something intangible about our spirit, right? And it's something that we can't grasp. It's something that we can see and we can admire, and we can go, I just want to be around this person because it makes me feel good, and that's something that people don't think as the highest commodity. And this is what spirituality is all about, isn't it, Lawrence? It's a state of beingness, as opposed to, hey, look at my big house here and look how great I am, and I have this Ferrari, and I have this amazing jet boat, and a fantastic bike, so you should be inspired by that. And that doesn't inspire me. What inspires me is you. The way that you talk, the way that your attitude, and your language, because these are the types of people, listeners, that we need as leaders. That I'm going to keep going, and I'll let people decide what happens to what they say about me, and I'll just keep going and being the best person I can be as a dad, as a person on this planet, to walk and keep going and learning and growing and being the best person you can be. This is what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. And look, if you follow your vision and your passion, those things like opportunities and creating wealth and having whatever nice things, like that's kind of like a byproduct. But it's not the goal. And so if people go into business, I want to go into business so I can be financially free, and so I can have the nice car, the nice this, whatever. Like, it's not a refuge. And it's you look at, technology is a great example of impermanence. It's like, oh, the latest iPhone 12 came out and everyone's like frothing to get that. And then they've got it. And then a year later, they're like, oh yeah, I really don't like it because there's a 13. I've got to get that. That's the new thing. So I think attachment is very transitory. You can have like a fixation or identification with something that's going to bring me happiness, or one day when, then I'll be happy. And actually, it's not, as I was saying, there's no arrival hole. There isn't this like, I'm going to get there one day. And you might have a goal in mind, and then you achieve it, and then you go, oh, I can enjoy that and acknowledge, okay. But then it's like, okay, well then what's next? Because an achievement is a fleeting moment in the bigger picture. And you can say, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I got that done. That's nice. Okay, what's the next? I mean, this is a bit like how my mind works anyway, right? So I'm always like, okay, what's next? It's like, oh yeah, cool, got that done, good. Okay, what else can I do to be useful? I'm not going to go sit on my hands now for the next few years, going, hey everyone, look, I achieved this. Like, who cares? Like, really? So it's really around okay, how can I next be useful, in which way, and having that, that's the guiding force. It's not the getting the thing or whatever it is, because it's empty, completely empty, and really quite meaningless, in a sense as well, because so again, these are the kind of trappings of the ego. The ego loves to have the recognition, to be seen, to be, I've arrived somewhere, and it's absolute bullshit. Like, it doesn't exist. It really doesn't. So knowing that, then you go like, okay, well then that's not the goal. So what is the goal? What is meaningful? What's going to bring more connection? What's going to bring more inspiration? How will this enrich others? Yeah. So if we take the focus off ourselves and actually we come to this place of service, not servitude, but service in the sense of genuinely caring and wanting to contribute, then we have a lot of opportunity. My Buddhist teacher used to say, if you focus on yourself, you have problems. If you focus on others, you have lots to do. Yeah, you can be super useful, and actually that's what brings joy. Is seeing how being useful and how that can inspire others and bring happiness that way. Then that's being useful in the world.
I love it. Lawrence, I really want to thank you for your time today. And I hope the listeners get a really good opportunity to really feel into what you've been saying, because in my opinion, this is just my opinion, you can take or leave it, Lawrence, you're the type of person that everyone needs in their life. You have the right attitude, you have the way, you've got the spiritual, you've got the entrepreneurial, you've got the emotional, you've got the mental, you've got so much of the things, and that you're still here to improve, right? You're not finished. You're not a finished product, and it doesn't matter what you've done. It's what you're going to keep going with and keep improving. I'm so inspired by you, Lawrence, and I feel really grateful that I got the opportunity to spend time and hang out with you today. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you. And it's by sharing, I get to practice my art a bit better as well. So it's great for me as well, because I get to remind myself where I'm at, and keep myself accountable as well. So I think that's super important as well. And shameless plug, if any listeners want to find out more, just you Google my name, so Lawrence Ellyard, oneword.com. That brings you to my site with my books and whatnot. Get a bit more idea of what I'm up to.
Yeah, so we'll put all the details in the show notes. And if you really like this podcast, I'd really appreciate to support Lawrence and the Uncovered podcast as well, to like and share this with as many people as you can, because I think try and get in touch with this man. If you're around Byron Bay area, go and find out how to get into the Sweat Lodge and get a chance to get some understanding and support from a man who's on a mission to change the human condition. Thank you very much, Lawrence, for being with us.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.
Thanks so much for listening to our podcast. We really appreciate you, and we really appreciate your time, because time is so valuable. What we'd love you guys to do, if you like this podcast, if you could share it with your friends, and also our website address for the podcast is www.wellnessbreakthroughacademypodcast.com. Our website is www.wellnessbreakthroughacademy.com. We have a free Facebook group called Wellness Leadership Evolution, so search for that. I'd love it if you could add me as a friend on Facebook. I don't buy it, so add me as a friend. And if you want some help and you would really like some support from us in the Academy, jump in. We have a process. You can do a break-in call to connect in with us. We do small courses. We have lots of things that we share. So we'd love the opportunity to give you a chance to change your life and turn it into a free one. You are one transformation away from change. Come and catch up.